UKRAINEgate, CIA Black Op, Deep State PSYOP, Democrat coup, mass media destruction, Israeli espionage, Trump sting, or all six. Make no mistake about it, UKRAINEgate is very real, but not the false narrative pushed by the media. Trump tricked the Democrats into blowing wide open their own Ukraine scandal under Obama. Just how big is that? It will expose Bidengate, which will expose the Russiagate conspiracy, which will then expose Clinton's Emailgate and Servergate scandals, which will in turn expose Deep State and their international banking cartel sponsors. Even the Illuminati hidden hand may be revealed as never before, along with the forever veiled black nobility. This coming from intelligence analyst and former US Army officer. After the Russiagate hoax was exposed as soft coup, the Democrats deceitfully fabricated UKRAINEgate to overthrow the President of the United States, except they failed to realize they were just baited by a huge sting operation. Coming on the heels of Mueller report, which unintentionally revealed the truth about the disastrous Russiagate hoax, Deep State is once again showing its determination to overthrow President Trump. It's of paramount importance to point out that CIA's outright spying on the POTUS and then releasing the false reports of the spying and surveillance have never happened before. In other words, the disclosure of Trump's Zelensky phone conversation has no precedent going back to our nation's founding. Such an outrageous betrayal of confidence will forever and radically alter the way that state actors do business with each other in the future. At its very core, the fabricated UKRAINEgate non-scandal is a first. Yes, the CIA has spied on US presidents as long as they have existed, but the traitors never had the chutzpah to manufacture a scandal explicitly and fastidiously designed to take down a sitting POTUS in broad daylight. The US intelligence community doesn't even care that the whole world is witnessing their transparent treason and egregious treachery. UKRAINEgate is really complicated. Of course, UKRAINEgate was made complicated on purpose in order to hide various layers of deception and coercion by the left, as well as conceal its revelatory purposes by the right. It's imperative to understand that there are various types of motivation and levels of infiltration that undergird the necessary black ops, some of which are now front-page news in the CIA's Mockingbird media. Key point, as always, the farther we get away from the scene of the UKRAINEgate crime in both time and space, the easier it will be to tease out the true intentions of the perpetrators at the highest level. The title of this post portrays only those perps that we know for a fact are co-conspirators in this ongoing insurrection. Each of them has compelling interest to either depose or neutralize, coerce or control the POTUS. Purple Revolution. The most obvious of the plot overthrow Trump is ongoing Purple Revolution that was coyly declared by the Democrats via Hillary Clinton's concession speech on November 9, 2016. That Democratic leadership in the House is currently leading the charge since their Che Guevara, Barack Obama, was exposed for so much presidential wrongdoings that he was forced into exile by going to work for Netflix. The Clinton crime family has also been forced into the shadows, although Hillary does come out from under her rock, throw stones at Trump whenever she thinks she can get away with it. Adam Schiff, however, it is the Democrats' version of Thomas D. Tormenta, Adam Schiff, who is playing POTUS hitman like no other House Intel chair in American history. This guy has been programmed to character assassinate Trump and take him down by any means possible, even if his own reputation suffers, and suffered it has. Shifty Schiff has been outed in so many ways for so many crimes and for so much corruption, it's quite amazing he's still standing. It's entirely true, the sheer depth and breadth of Schiff's perfidy and criminal past make him the perfect henchman to destroy a presidency. For the uninitiated, the following investigative report lays bare another significant piece of the secret backstory of the extremely crooked former prosecutor Adam Bennett Schiff. Of course, the cast of thoroughly corrupt Democrat politicians ranges from A to Z, and of course stands for Nadler, who also seems not to care that he is now a national laughingstock. Why they let Gerald, the nerd, Nadler lead this insurgency against Trump is anyone's guess. S stands for Schumer, Chuck the Clock. Schumer is another co-conspirator who actually had the audacity to issue this exceedingly brazen threat to Trump. Let me tell you, You take on intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. Senator Chuck Schumer. W stands for Warren. Elizabeth the Wackadoodle Warren will never get over the fact that she faked being Pocahontas and that Trump will never let us forget that profound betrayal of the Native American tribes. W also stands for Waters, as in Wacky Maxine Waters. This wackadoodle on steroids was calling for Trump's impeachment even before Election Day 2016. Need we say more? Let's not forget Spartacus Booker, B. B does stand for Cory the Berserk Booker, who runs for president in spite of recent sexual assault charges being lodged against him recently by a man. K stands for Cookie, Kamala Harris, whose many videos capture a character right out of the Joker. This particular entity was originally created in CIA lab Petri dish to be a female Obama. However, that experiment went terribly awry and apparently produced a Franken candidate who turned on its master. In so doing, Harris also lost the plot as explained in detail here. Operation Crafty Beaver Deep State attempts to start a race war before stealing the 2020 POTUS election. B stands for Beto, the butthead O'Rourke. Who would ever run for president after fantasizing about running over children with your car and delighting in the grisly murder? Who would ever write down such a murder fantasy in the first place? Of course, Y stands for Yin Yang Andrew Yang. He'll support any LGBTQ cause in creation, even committing to appointing several LGBT individuals to senior posts in his administration. He also wants to foist the LGBT agenda on the young children by thoroughly educating them in cultural Marxist infiltrated public school system. Then there is N for Nancy, the knife Pelosi. If there is a consigliere congresswoman who is stealthily commandeering this whole impeachment process, it's Nancy. It's nasty Nancy. Complicated coup. Now here is the essential teaching moment of this surreptitious soft coup, coercion op and CIA control mechanism. It may be difficult to comprehend such a sophisticated operation like UKRAINegate because it's really occurring on several levels and in different dimensions, so to speak. For instance, Israel feels that it needs to exert maximum control over the Trump White House, and they will do anything necessary to maintain that control. Fabricating national government scandals has always worked well for them. Remember Watergate? Well, it was really about Pedogate and the Israeli blackmail bribery control system they maintain over the key organs of the US federal government. Very few are aware, but Ukraine is a key cog in the Pedogate machine. Many underage girls are brought to America and elsewhere to satisfy the voracious desires of the power elite. With this critical understanding, it ought to be easier to apprehend why the Ukraine has been at the center of so much of international scandal, governmental corruption and political controversy. Truly, it all comes down to the Ukraine. That's because it's the flashpoint that the New World Order cabal planned to use to trigger the hot phase of World War III. Back to Israel. Where it concerns UKRAINegate, there is a much bigger story going on here that meets the eye, even the Five Eyes. That's because it concerns the working of the Khazarian mafia and their complete takeover of Ukraine as prelude to something very big in the not too distant future. This highly radioactive story also concerns the eventual relocation of international Ashkenazi Jewry, sometimes known as the Ashkenazim, back to their ancestral lands of the 8th century Khazaria. Most do not know, but there is a plan afoot by the modern state of Israel to set up a return to its original homeland in Ukraine. The eastern Ukraine was once part of the kingdom of Khazaria during a time when Judaism was chosen by the king to become the official state religion. The upshot of this little factoid is quite staggering, as it's already produced major moves and maneuvers on the global geopolitical chessboard. In point of fact, the far-reaching repercussions of the covered-up Ukraine backstory are so immense that dedicated essay will be written to address the most significant aspects, especially where they concern a planned Third World War. In the meantime, the following article is offered as important background material. Their final solution, market crash, dollar collapse, and World War III. Is Trump really stinging the coup plotters? There is a very good reason to believe that President Trump purposefully held the world-famous phone call with Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky, knowing it would be exploited by deep state operatives. Deep state operatives, rogue CIA agents, and house mutineers. Why? Because the Bush crime syndicate and Clinton crime family chose to break the deal. What deal? This one. Bush funeral envelope affair solved. The Mexican standoffs inside Beltway. Once Deep State avoided the terms of the contract by going after Attorney General William Barr, war broke out all over the place. Likewise, after the Democrat opposition reneged on the same agreement umpteenth time, all hell broke loose. Given the resulting political realities for Trump, particularly in light of his re-election ambitions, he appears to have engineered the recent UKRAINEgate so as to not only expose Joe Biden as the career criminal that he truly is, but also further advance slow-motion collapse of Democrat Party. Let's be real. Trump is the most spied on and surveilled POTUS in history. He has known from the very beginning that the spooks have been watching his every move, word and thought. Yes, they have AI that can read minds, especially the president's. The deep state effectively controls and monitors the entire US federal government is well understood by the entire Trump administration. Given those stark realities, Trump's conversation with Zelensky must have been a setup from the start. Trump's security advisors even moved the classified phone chat to a special place, encapsulated it, as they say, which predictably sent up red flag that alerted the so-called CIA officer to grab it. Grab it they did, as well as totally re-expose the real scandal here, known as BidenGate, as well as the original UKRAINEgate. What makes BidenGate so dangerous for the Democrats is that it reflects the outright warmongering by Obama and company in order to control Ukraine's energy industry. It also exposes the underbelly of American foreign policy, which will spare no country on earth from CIA-coordinated interventions wherever it concerns the naked exploitation of oil and gas reserves. This is also why Russia has been so vilified. Putin's Kremlin knew that the Ukraine had been systematically stealing natural gas from their pipelines running through the country for years, and not even paying for the gas they were allocated. Russian energy exploration and production companies also had a huge interest in developing the Ukrainian energy reserves as promised by the overthrown President Viktor Yanukovych. That US State Department directed coup d'etat lies at the very heart of BidenGate. The crux of this matter revolves around Burisma Holdings Limited, an energy company based in Kiev, Ukraine. What really happened there, directly involving Joe and Hunter Biden, is enough to bring down the Democrat Party for a generation. After all, DNC has permitted the totally corrupt Biden to sit at the top of the list of 2020 Democrat POTUS candidates despite his documented history as a career criminal politician. UKRAINEgate, CIA Black Op, Deep State PSYOP, Democrat coup, mass media destruction, Israeli espionage, Trump sting, or all six. The preceding subtitle of this article says it all. Nothing these days is as it seems. And yes, there are often several ops running full tilt out in the open, while there are others running secretly in the background. Key points. Now here's the crucial points for those who really grasp the subtlety of such complex sting operation. There are many layers to such a literal counterintelligence operation because there have to be. For instance, there are multiple camps within the US intelligence community that are operating independently from any government oversight. In this way, some of these rogue intel factions are able to execute black ops against the POTUS and get away with it even though everyone knows they did it. Because the nature of the ultra-classified intel is such that they were one of very few parties who had access and could do it. The CIA is well known for their highly compartmentalized espionage operations that are carried out and strictly need-to-know bases abroad. They have been getting away with the same black ops right here in the good old USA since their very inception. The CIA's assassination of JFK and the subsequent cover-up prove their history of incessant domestic terrorism, as does their direct involvement with the Mossad in the 9/11 false flag terror attacks. However, there are also white hats who must frequently go rogue for the sake of defeating the American Republic. Only it is these brilliant nation-saving operations that are necessary to either protect the POTUS or deal a blow to his enemies. But these counter-espionage strategies must be executed in a manner that is layered to the max, as they are also veiled with the highest level of security. The many communist leftists who populated the Democrat Party easily fall for these rules because of their inveterate hatred of Trump, as manifested by their extreme case of Trump derangement syndrome, which caused the perverse partisans to lose their nationality and ability to human reason. CrowdStrike deceit. Perhaps the most significant piece of Trump's sting is the deliberate move he undoubtedly made to get Zelensky to deliver the CrowdStrike server, which he has hard evidence relied on by both DNC and Robert Mueller to support the non-existent Russia election hack. The Clinton crime family, together with the Podesta brothers, pushed that fictional CrowdStrike story like mad because they both needed a very good reason to justify their epic election loss. They also sought to overturn the 2016 election result any way they could. The Democrats needed a huge cause celeb with which to hang the alleged turncoat Trump for supposedly collaborating with Russia to win 2016. He didn't do that. Julian Assange proved he didn't, which is why he's currently rotting away in British prison. Putin's Kremlin has repeatedly and correctly stated that not an iota of evidence has been produced supporting the fiction Russiagate narrative. And yet, the real perps still promote the fake story at every opportunity, which brings us back to the radioactive CrowdStrike server. This is what Trump really wants, and he wants it bad. The CrowdStrike server will show the truth about Russiagate. It will not only exonerate Trump completely, but also expose the Clinton and DNC as co-conspirators in massive fraud to deceive the American people. Given how ridiculously phony Mueller investigation misdirected from the real Democrat Russiagate criminal conspiracy for so long, it doesn't get any bigger than this, folks. Trump will not end his first term without bringing to light the facts surrounding the ultra-damaging CrowdStrike deceit. This will vindicate him as no other evidence can, because the real DNC Russia hackers were found. The whistleblower. Speaking of the whistleblower who tipped off the entire planetary civilization to UKRAINEgate, it ought to be clear that Grand Inquisitor Adam Schiff is the answer to the question. Cui bono? On just one level, of course. Therefore, he is likely the real whistleblower, especially when this question is answered on the purely political level. Schiff has the most to gain in light of his self-damning Russiagate fiasco. He has so much egg on his face from the unrivaled blunder that he is now apparently determined to prove himself right, even if it means taking down the whole nation, after taking down the Democrat Party. In view of the humiliating revelations that came from the special counsel and bogus Russiagate investigation, Schiff was profoundly embarrassed, and to an unparalleled degree in US political history. No other member of Congress has ever made up, out of thin air, so much falsehood and fiction, and then spewed it through the mass media as fact. How he still gets away with it, occupying such a high perch in the congressional intel realm, remains an utterly shocking embarrassment to the USA. It also reveals who really runs the whole place. Key point: Schiff has literally been caught making up false but incriminating stories, then leaking them to the press, and then using the largest mass media platforms to repeat his false accusations and other prevarications. This blatantly reckless behavior can only be the result of P2Gate manipulation. Nevertheless, it must be acknowledged that whoever the actual CIA agent whistleblower is, Schiff et al. Really set them up to commit what amounts to outright treason. What Schiff failed to realize is that he was also set up by Team Trump. When the President of the United States is compelled to call out a seditious member of the US Congress for sketching out a public indictment using an obviously fabricated account of the actual history, you know how desperate the treacherous perps really are. That's just what Schiff did on national TV when he contrived fake story on how Trump did shakedown of Ukraine president. UKRAINEgate. Let's get right to the bottom line. Here. UKRAINEgate was blown up after the Democrats were informed that Trump was going after Biden crime family for criminal wrongdoings in the Ukraine. What father and son really did there was a full-blown crime spree. However, Deep State really blew it up when they saw how determined Trump was to get a hold of the CrowdStrike server. What no one is talking about here is the much bigger crime against humanity that the Obama administration committed by engineering the catastrophic Ukraine civil war. Not only did Biden's warmongering steer apart that country, that continuing war served to restart the Cold War with Russia. how calamitous for the world community, for nations, is that intentional outcome designed by Obama, Biden, Clinton, Newland war-making team, which means that the recent UKRAINEgate is really about stifling Trump's initiative to get to the bottom of Bidengate, because that will inevitably lead to the root cause of the real UKRAINEgate, not the current fake one. It ought to be apparent how the left is co-opting the real scandals with fake scandals by even using the same memes and mass media emotionally charged language. Deep State knows that the ensuing confusion is simply far too great for the average American voter to comprehend, as the true story is so obfuscated by the CIA-controlled Mockingbird media. So to recap, the House Democrats in the Intel leadership basically used a rogue CIA agent or faction to acquire privileged presidential conversations with a foreign head of state, and then use that so-called whistleblower to write up a picture-perfect, detailed and concocted against Trump. It can be used as a veritable indictment in the upcoming impeachment hearings. Wow, you can't make this stuff up. What the Dems don't realize is that this sting was exactly set up to elicit their anticipated reaction. Wait until the post-impeachment process moves to the Senate for trial and the discovery phase permits all the hard evidence on Bidengate to be presented for all to view. Then Team Trump can call for a special commission to investigate the original UKRAINEgate that pushed the USA and Russia into Cold War 2.0, also known as the real Russiagate scandal. You gotta give it to Trump. He took a huge risk, but perhaps one worth taking, since the Democrats will suffer much more than the White House during the rapidly evolving, highly volatile campaign season. The other deep state co-conspirators who will suffer much damage from these various scandals are the mainstream media and the US intel community, and especially the CIA. Both treacherous entities intimately colluded to ensure that everything happened right on time, so as to explode the fake UKRAINEgate narrative, because virtually every major network anchor is either a paid CIA agent or contractor, as are all the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalists employed by the main newspapers of record. It was quickly evident that each was provided with the very same talking and writing points. Key point: as the chief executive officer of the US corporation, the POTUS is tasked with overseeing the nation's law enforcement for both domestic and foreign matters. Vice President Biden and his son were involved in illegal activity in the Ukraine. Trump would have been negligent not to have pursued crimes that not only led to the Ukraine war, but also the resumption of the Cold War. Because there is no wrongdoing on Trump's part to air the truth, the Democrats are rushing to impeachment to immediately stop his presidential investigation. They had no other way to save their necks. In doing so, they are flagrantly interfering in very serious international criminal case. There is no legal justification whatsoever for impeachment here, and the left knows it. They nonetheless are determined to prematurely push through the articles of impeachment before anyone realizes it's a total sham. Conclusion: there are several conclusions which can be drawn from this analysis. First, the Democrats will do anything necessary to prevent a Trump re-election. They will lie, cheat, steal, bribe, blackmail, extort, kidnap, torture, maim and murder to avoid a second Trump term. They will specially bog him down with impeachment so as to tarnish his reputation with the upcoming House proceedings and Senate trial. However, it will backfire on them big time. Secondly, Deep State will implement every scheme required to keep Trump in check. This covert unelected government of SCS employees really does run the US government, and they will remind the POTUS each and every day of his term of this inconvenient fact of life inside the Beltway. Moreover, Deep State operatives who have infiltrated the West Wing will forever vex Trump by attempting to thwart his every move, especially where it concerns the uncovering of Obama administration crime wave. Thirdly, the US intelligence community doesn't work for the American people. Rather, the CIA is an international entity headquartered in Switzerland and answers directly to black nobility. This 700-year-old international crime syndicate of bankster families set up the Nazi SS, Gestapo and Abwehr prior to their incorporation into the Central Intelligence Agency through first Operation Overcast and then via Operation Paperclip. There are very good reasons why Switzerland stayed out of both world wars. The European theaters of war were fastidiously orchestrated from their mountain command posts. Now the CIA is showing US how they can illegally run any disruptive operations in the 50 states, even staging a full-blown coup d'etat in Washington, D.C. at will. Fourth, the mass media has been ordered by the powers that be to generate massive amounts of destruction and chaos, not only in the global economic and financial system, on the verge of a free-fall collapse after a planned engineered stock market crash much greater than 1929, there will likely be multiple controlled demolitions of all the markets, stock and bond, commodities and currency, real estate and insurance, derivatives and carbon. The wealthy elites need all the diversion and distraction they can get from mass media as they make off with the loot. Mutual funds, pension plans, 401ks, IRAs, etc. Perpetrating one heist after another before they disappear into the night. Fifth, Israel is still attempting to complete the Kalamish's Greater Israel project, as well as the established one world government headquarters in Jerusalem. This can only be accomplished with POTUS, who will follow every dictate issued from Tel Aviv. Trump's family has been accommodating the Zionists led by the Netanyahu clan as no other POTUS. Hence, the Zionist Israelis waste no time trying to take advantage of Trump's sympathies and support. Therefore, the firing of neocon Zionist John Bolton may also have been a major factor in the sensational explosion of UKRAINEgate. Lastly, it really does appear that Trump is pulling off a major sting in the midst of it all. He has always been willing to sacrifice his image in order to expose the swamp. He knows he cannot drain it during his first term, so why not expose all the swamp creatures before he leaves office? BidenGate does just that, and in much bigger way than anyone knows, because it will likely lead to the unraveling of the pervasively criminal abomination. Truly, the exposure of UKRAINEgate, the original one, is the linchpin to revealing so much other governmental corruption and institutional crime on grand scale. As crazy as it sounds, none of the 6 agendas is necessarily mutually exclusive. That's how the perps at the very peak of the pinnacle of the world power pyramid construct these all-engrossing media-hyped scandals. Meanwhile, the elites are stealing everyone blind, and the populace doesn't even know they are being fleeced. So much for the Fourth Estate made Trump tweet the mass media into oblivion so that we the people can begin to take back our country from those who have stolen it. But first, let's watch UKRAINEgate sufficiently expose the left before the Democrat Party implodes for good. Any party full of cultural Marxists, violent Bolsheviks, flaming socialists, hardcore communists, LGBTQ gorillas, etc. is dangerous to the extreme, which is precisely why President Trump is working in overtime to take them down before they topple him and subvert the American Republic in order to violently establish the USSA, where A stands for America. State of the Nation, September 28, 2019.